The hero's journey has been famous for making stories great for thousands upon thousands of years, and with good reason. Stories like The Hunger Games, Star Wars, Harry Potter, they thrive on the archetypes of the hero's journey. So in this video, I want to talk about exactly why that is, why the hero's journey captures the human imagination, why it makes stories more meaningful, more compelling, and ultimately more successful. Because no matter what genre you're writing in, including self-help, if you understand the human dynamics that are at play in the psyche, in the hero's journey, you're going to be able to use it no matter what you're writing, and also in general in your life, because we all want to be the hero of our own journey, whether we're the author or we're the protagonist in the story. If you haven't heard of the hero's journey before, this is a set of archetypes, a set of tropes that Joseph Campbell began to notice as he studied mythologies and stories throughout the world, from India, Africa, the Americas, the Europeans, all of the stories that gave birth to all of the cultures in every continent use these different tropes again and again. And so that in and of itself is a reason the hero's journey is so compelling, because it's part of the universal nature of what it is to be human and what it is to go on an adventure. So I have 6 of my favorite tropes from the hero's journey that when you plug them into any story, it's going to make it more meaningful. And I want to go through them because they represent certain dynamics in the decisions we make when we want to grow. And they also help us to bring out the stakes, to bring out the meaning in the different stories that we're putting together. So if you feel blocked, listen now, because just plugging these different archetypes in is going to make the writing process so much easier. Let's start with the call to adventure and the refusal of the call. I want to group these together. These are 2 parts of the hero's journey. The call to adventure is basically the inciting incident. It's the pirates sack the village. The girl gets asked on her first date. The lawyer gets the murder case sitting on his desk in front of him, and they have to decide if they want to enter the story. Now, this aspect of the hero's journey is especially important because the refusal of the call, the fact that they're thinking about it, they might not want to get into this, there are reasons not to do it, gives it more meaning, gives it more reason. When you take a beat in a story to show what's at stake, to show why your protagonist might want to step back and say no, then you as the writer are provided with the opportunity to really outline the meaning. This is what's good about this. This is what's bad about this. If the protagonist is in an inner debate, or even better, a debate with another character outside of themselves, if they're really examining what this particular call to action means and why they don't want to do it, then the reader is engaged more and it draws the stakes out more. So the reader knows how important whatever it is, the desire the protagonist has to enter the adventure, they know even it becomes even more meaningful because they can understand what the protagonist might not want from this adventure. It helps us to draw out those stakes. The next thing is the crossing the threshold. So I'm sure a word I'm going to repeat a lot in this video is stakes, because when we're starting to write a story, sometimes we can assume The reader knows why something is important because, after all, we thought up the idea. We love the idea, so we know why it's important. Why doesn't the reader know this? Well, the reader doesn't know it unless you draw out the significance, the stakes. If I don't do this, this will happen. I want this so bad because I want to escape this situation. All of those things are the stakes. And so crossing the threshold is where it's the point of no return. It's after reasoning everything out and refusing the call. They decide, you want to know what? I'm crossing the threshold. I'm going to do this. Yes or yes. And so the fact that you take these beats, you take these archetypes and address them one by one, it ensures that the reader understands why this is important. So with the stakes, they either have their heart on the line in a romantic type of story, or, when Bilbo Baggins says yes to Gandalf, he has his life at stake for the entire rest of the book. And so crossing the threshold is when you are at this beginning act one of a story. Make sure that there's skin in the game, and make sure your reader understands what that skin in the game is. Next, trials and tribulations. So a fun exercise for the trials and tribulations part of the hero's journey is take any story, take your favorite movie, your favorite book, and just flip through the pages and mark every time things get worse. Mark every surprise. So often in stories, Pride and Prejudice, let's say, the people we thought were bad are good, and the people we thought are good or bad. And so all of these are the switch ups, the trials and tribulations. So when we start the story, refusal of the call and the crossing the threshold, they initiate the stakes. If I don't do this, I won't get that. I'll be alone. I'll be dead. My village will be in danger. The people I love will get killed. Those are the stakes. And then we want to escalate the stakes throughout to keep the readers reading. We want to make it worse. And of course, that's sprinkled in with romantic moments, with moments of empathy and moments of bonding and moments of breakthroughs. But more than anything, we want to really raise those stakes through surprises, through trials and tribulations, until we get to the fourth thing I'm going to talk about today, the abyss. Now, there's this wonderful quote by Shonda Rhimes that I want to bring up here, because why do we have to have all this conflict in stories? Why do we have to get things so bad in our stories? Well, I love Shonda Rhimes' answer to that question. She's super famous. You can Google her if you aren't already a fan. So Shonda Rhimes says, I don't know who a character is until I've seen them handle adversity on the screen or off the screen. That's how you know who somebody really is. And that is the reason the abyss archetype is so important in a story. It usually happens at the midpoint of the story, and whatever those stakes are that the protagonist has been trying to protect themselves or protect something they care about, in the middle of the story, we just get to a rock bottom low point. And this serves not only to show us who this character is, but the next point that's going to be coming up in just a moment is the transformation. And so actually, I'm going to take the abyss and transformation together, because by putting the protagonist in the abyss, we get to see who they really are in adversity, and it also liberates them. When they've lost everything, then this transformation is right around the corner. They're no longer as afraid. They're no longer kind of handcuffed by the things they don't want to happen. Terrible stuff has happened, so I might as well go full throttle for what I want. And that is the gift of the abyss, is that after they've been through something difficult, we have some of that ego, some of that fear stripped away, and then they just go full throttle. As Shonda Rhimes says, we understand who they really are. And that is, of course, extremely liberating. So transformation happens at the climax. At the climax, there's usually, the full transformations happens in the form often as a confrontation. And so we have the good forces and the bad forces confronting one another so that we can make it to the final trope with the hero's journey, which is the elixir. I love that word, the elixir. The elixir is the magic potion that the hero brings back to share with everyone in the story. And so the elixir, translated into common literary terms, is the message of your story. So once we go through the abyss, that transformation where our protagonist is liberated into going after what they really want, confronting the villain, really coming into themselves with integrity, then they have some elixir, some lesson that they had to learn through the abyss and transformation. And that's where we really want the lesson of our story, the significance of our story, to hit home at the end, and make sure that just as we had to establish the stakes at the beginning of the story, we really bring home that elixir. We bring home that wonderful message that the hero learned by the end of the story. And so if you Google the hero's journey, you're going to find more tropes, more archetypes. All of those are especially applicable to the fantasy genre. But the reason I love these 6 parts of the hero's journey is because, you can think of how that's important in self-help stories. You can see how that's important in romantic stories. And so those are the 6 tropes that I find most universal when I'm coaching people with their books. Now, structure helps and supports creativity. So at the end of every video that I bring to you every single Friday, I always have a free resource right in the comments below, not in the comments, but in the description. And so hero's journey is wonderful to apply to story structure. And if you want a little help with story structure, I have a wonderful outline template below. It's basically a chart where you can start to fill in the blanks. You can apply it to your favorite stories so you can see the inner workings of your favorite movie or your favorite book. And then once you have it clear, once you have the understanding of the inner workings of a story, go ahead and really map out your story ahead of time. Using that template, it'll make the whole process more enjoyable and faster. So every single Friday, I have new videos to help you along the way of your writing path. So much love, and I will see you next week.